Hello folks. Where I'm walking right now, I don't know if it gives the best indication of where I am, where this future trip is going to be. I'm going to keep that a secret, of course. I like to give secrets and nothing else on these epilogue videos. But yes, welcome to another one of my epilogue videos. This is the third epilogue because by now I've just uploaded all of the videos to my third major trip on the coverage project. This was the Get Out of New York City tour. I think we had a great time exploring all of these known places, but also hidden gems as far away from New York City as possible within the state of New York. I hope that you all learned a thing or two about the things that you can do, the experiences that you can have once you venture outside of the big place. You know, the grand place that captures everybody's attention when they think of New York, even though there is such a huge state surrounding it. As always, I'll say that the purpose of these epilogue videos is to really give a good picture of what I couldn't really share on the regular travel videos, to explain what was going through my mind through these travels, the lessons I learned, the feelings I had about the general experiences that were had while I was traveling, and maybe share a little story or two about things that maybe the timing wasn't right, so I couldn't get my camera out and record. But I will suggest that because this will share a lot of information about the trips, if you are interested in knowing a little bit more about the places that we went to on these trips, this is going to be a big spoiler. So I recommend watching a good portion of those videos in the Get Out of New York City tour before watching this one. So watch these videos, then come back and we'll talk about it all. So to recap the journey, we started in western New York, just west of the Finger Lakes, to this Letchworth State Park where we saw the beautiful gorge that was there. Then we went up to Buffalo, the major city. We traveled to nearby Niagara Falls, so the huge waterfall complex. Then we went a little eastward through the shore of Lake Ontario and then hit Rochester, another major city in upstate New York. We went upward to New York's North Country, where we saw the beautiful town of Watertown. Finally, we stopped in the Thousand Islands region, where we took that grand boat tour and saw all of those little towns right on the shores of this Thousand Islands region. Now, that trip was in middle to late May, and so as I'm talking to you all about it right now, it's been a long time. I've had some time to think about how I viewed that trip and the lessons I learned from it. And to be honest with you all, I'm not sure if I have a definitive answer, a definitive lesson I learned from this trip. Usually what I'd like to do in these epilogue type videos is come out at the beginning of the video and just say, this is the lesson I learned, and then bring the story to you all. But I'm not sure if it can really work that way with this last trip. You see, it's probably my own doing that I think and dwell a lot on just everyday things, and I try to be of the mindset that I'm always learning, I'm always trying to learn something new about myself or society, or just for the purpose of finding meaning in a lot of things, finding the significance in these smaller things that I can maybe apply to my life to become a better person, or just to learn and prevent things from happening that I otherwise would not want to happen, or something like that. So I'm always thinking, but it might sometimes pose as something that inhibits a lot of benefit or happiness or satisfaction with something. And I think that was sort of the case in this last Get Out of New York City trip. So when I look back at the two last major trips I've had that I've shared with you all here in the coverage project, the first lesson I learned was, well, sometimes it's good to take risks. You never know how bad circumstances can lead to good circumstances. So the thing that was the major catalyst in me learning that was something bad that happened, and through the adventure I learned from it and took that adventure and had great experiences based off of that. And on the second trip, something very major happened, something very serious happened. And as a result, I learned to really appreciate the good things in life, the things I'm lucky for. When you're in the mindset that things can be taken away from you, you'll learn to really appreciate the small things you do have. And so those were two big lessons I took away from each of those respective trips. But for this third trip, there were no real major challenges. And I think when I was thinking through this whole trip, okay, something might happen, or I might go through a big obstacle in this trip. I have to prepare for it. I have to think about it. Or I wanted each little thing that happened to appear some sort of, okay, this is the lesson you're going to learn. I wanted to make meaning from all these small different things, whether it was going to a restaurant and eating something, or traveling to a location, or the journey of just finding these different locations in a city or a town. I always was trying to find, okay, what is the lesson I'm going to learn here at this place? And I think that really took a lot away from the satisfaction I could have had from this trip. I don't want to bring forth the wrong message. I really had a lot of fun here. Traveling through upstate New York and visiting these places that I have never gone to in my life, even though it is my home state, it was such a cool experience. So it wasn't a bad trip by any means. I just think it could have been a much better trip for my own satisfaction had I not really thought about, okay, what is the meaning for this and that and that? I thought way too much on things that I should just let come to me. You know how I said that, this place isn't really an indication for the place we're at? Well, these better serve as more obvious indications of where we are in the relative area of this country. It's a nice little farmstead with the barns and the sheds for tools. I bet you really want to know where we are, but I must say, secrets are so fun, especially when the epilogue ain't done. So, sorry, I'm the one with the secret. Can't tell you, so sorry. Maybe after the video. Now that I've had time to think about not just this trip, but the trips beforehand, I think I learned a lot more, and I realized that the best part of, let's say, the last trip, before this trip, the Appalachia Atlantic tour, the best parts of it came after that serious incident, and I had a lot more fun being in those experiences, I think because of that mindset. Like, for example, going back to my way up Virginia on that Atlantic Appalachia tour, in Richmond, I met a woman who was almost living this nomadic lifestyle, making her money off of art she would sell from recyclable materials, and she taught me a lot about just how to live an alternative lifestyle, and I felt enlightened from that beautiful interaction. And then when I went into Shenandoah National Park, I met this, I would say, middle-aged couple who were living a lot of their life in a motorhome or a van, and they were telling me experiences about how they traveled across the country, and they were so generous enough to give me snacks late at night next to the fire that they were building. And I guess maybe once you're down there in Virginia or the South, people are a lot more friendly, but I don't know the real reason, but for some reason, almost every single day after that serious incident, things just kept happening that were great, even better than the last trip, or things that were happening that were just didn't need to happen, but they happened anyway, and it was on behalf of the benefit of my own experiences. Things just naturally happened that were almost took away from the immense guilt I was feeling every day after that incident. So I guess I also learned from that trip number 2, Atlantic Appalachia tour, that when bad things happen, you just need to keep trudging on through. And perhaps good things will happen. Good interactions, fun experiences, things that really make you feel lucky to be continuing your travels, I guess. And so I guess I could apply that to this latest trip, the escape from New York City, because while I was at a campground in Buffalo, or near the Buffalo area, I met this one guy who was getting on in age, and he just felt like, you know what? Life is so much more simple when you camp out and just have these very down-to-earth experiences. So he invited me over one morning for some coffee. I got to pet his dog a little bit, and we just exchanged our stories. And he told me about the simple things in life being the most important. Like a nice cup of coffee in the morning. Like taking your dog out to the lake for a nice walk. Things like that, which matter. And so he relayed to me all this beautiful information and advice that maybe I should be taking the simple things not so for granted. Maybe the simple things are there to be simple and innocent and just nice in general. Maybe on my adventures, I don't have to think about one little experience being a certain catalyst for a lesson I might learn in the future. I don't have to think about, is this thing going to teach me a lesson? Because I think through that journey I've learned to just appreciate the simple things. And if I'm going to learn a lesson, if I am going to grow as a person, I think those experiences will just come through whatever adventures we have here on the Coverage Project, through whatever travels I go on. Good things will happen, bad things will happen, but it's not my responsibility to try to find those things actively. All I can really do is just be open to new experiences, and those things might happen for good or for worse. That will eventually help me grow as a person, as I wanted to. Speaking of simple things, I should really stop talking for a minute and just admire the old rustic architecture. These buildings, only made of wood and a few other materials. Oh, and there's a log cabin. Look at this thing. So simple, but I guess it captures my heart. I love looking at these things. You don't need a big house. Sure, it might be nice living in the lap of luxury, but it also might be nice to live sort of an innocent life in these small shelters. Wait, that's probably a bathroom, not a shelter, but you get my point. I've come to believe that after some time of thinking and dwelling about, well, thinking and dwelling during this last trip, I've come to understand that I can't control, really, the circumstances that come across. So the best thing to do is just be open to new experiences, and those periods of growth and development for character, behavior, maturity will come naturally. If there is any lesson I have learned from this trip around upstate New York, it's that maybe there doesn't always have to be a lesson every time. Lessons will come to you if you're open enough to let them come to you. I must say, though, that people in upstate New York are just so friendly. Maybe not so much in the major cities, but right around where you don't have as big of a population, where there's just farms around or nice rural communities, people are just the most friendly. In addition to that guy, I had a nice, heartfelt conversation one of those mornings near Buffalo, or maybe it was Niagara Falls, or I was in the same campground, it doesn't matter. Maybe additionally to that, I can tell you about my experiences at the last campground I stayed at. I immediately get to this campground. This is in North Country, near Watertown, near the Thousand Islands, and immediately, a guy in a golf cart comes along and says, "Hop in, we're gonna take you to your campground." This is before I paid the money or anything. So he just says, "Come on, hop in, we're gonna show you the best site you got." And so, this site, this whole campground actually, was right at the forefront of the St. Lawrence River, right where I shot that last scene in that Thousand Islands grand finale. I was able to do that because I was offered this pristine spot where you could just walk down and see this beautiful sunset along the St. Lawrence River. Now, of course, I finish up the little concluding monologue of that video, and immediately the owners of the campground come down. They're a nice little family, and they come down and they just spark a conversation. They're the ones to initiate, and they say, "Oh, are you enjoying the place? Oh yeah, where are you from?" They're asking all these questions that maybe if I was in a campground right next to a city, or maybe a chain of campgrounds like the KOAs, maybe I wouldn't have got that down-to-earth interaction. I'm really telling you, through these travels, it's all about the people you meet that really make these travels worthwhile and exciting and enjoyable, because you do get to meet the different people, have these great heartfelt interactions. So that was upstate New York. That was the Get Out of New York City trip epilogue. I hope you guys appreciated either the stories or the reflections or the philosophy or whatever, because as I continue to make these epilogues, I think I'm getting a better understanding of just how to do these. The first epilogue was just very messy, and now I think I understand a little bit better of how to convey the story and then apply that to the message that I want to deliver to you all. Once again, I want to deliver a more down-to-earth experience with these travel vlogs. So I think by sharing these stories and my reflections on these experiences we have in the other videos, that it can give a more down-to-earth experience. Like I'm one of you guys. I'm literally one of you guys. I'm just an everyday person who saved up and traveled to these lesser-known places. And I think that's what I want out of this experience, what I want out of this channel. Sure, I might go to these larger places, but really the heart of America, these very, very small places like we are at right now. So with that said, I bid you all adieu. This concludes our chapter in Coverage Project history, the Get Out of New York City tour. Of course, the videos are always going to be on the channel, but we are going to new places, a new region of the country, and I'm very excited. It's going to be quite the series, quite a long series, quite an eventful series. I'm already a good portion into this trip, so I can already tell there's going to be a lot of content coming your way soon. When I deliver that content, I don't know. I already know that right now it's almost the middle of July right now, and I haven't done a good job of consistently uploading videos because sometimes the Wi-Fi is just horrible in these campgrounds. Understandably, justifiably so. We're in the middle of the woods. We're not by any city or town. So when I do get Wi-Fi amenities at certain campgrounds, that's when I'm grinding. That's when I'm trying to upload stuff. But with that said, I bid you all adieu. We are going someplace great, so stay tuned. And as always, more travels to come. I will see you at the next location.